Okay, we're recording now. And Jane, I want to thank you first for coming to the show and telling us about your story. And I also want to say a prayer. So, Father, in the name of Jesus, we pray thank you so much for everything that you do and all the blessings. And we thank you for our challenges, because we know that our challenges will help build character and make us strong. And when we become strong, we're able to help others through our temptations and our trials. Father, you're so good to us. Thank you for all your blessings. Let all that hear this session tonight or whenever they listen, let them be helped. And we thank you for your healings. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you hear me okay?
We can. I can.
Good. Okay.
Okay. So you've had CRPS, RSD, for 30 years. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Okay. I've had it for 30 years consistently. However, I know that the onset was 5 years prior to that. What happened the 5 years prior was that I developed nerve pain in my legs and I couldn't walk. I went several weeks without being able to work. I was just in bed. And then, I got over that. I recovered from that and seemed to be fine for like 5 years. But then after the 5 years was when it became constant. And the way that happened was that I slipped on, I was in someone's yard and there was oil on the driveway, and I slipped on the oil and I went crashing hard on my back on the concrete. And so then, not long after that fall, a few years, less than 5, I had a car accident where I crashed into a concrete pole.
Wow.
The ones where you've got the circular post that the pole is into, and the light pole that's in a parking lot.
Right.
So anyway, that's pretty much how it started.
Wow.
So that initial injury was not the onset, that was to the legs, but the injury from the falling on the cement driveway, that was to my back and hip.
Mm-hmm.
So the back and hip were the first to be injured. And then as time went on, more and more things got injured, and ultimately ended up with full body RSD. And what else would you like to know?
Well, some people, I know that they've heard you tell your story before, and we know that some of us know that because of all of this that you've been through and it has caused certain conditions for you for even today. And why don't you tell us a little bit about today? How is it for you living with CRPS today?
I was hoping to work up to that.
Okay.
Okay. Let me just do a little bit of history to chronically tell you how it's been.
Okay.
In the beginning, it was the back and hip. And so, it was, the effects were like not being able to lift heavy things and not being able to bend down. Then, later, my feet became impaired. And then, of course, I a while, I went from needing crutches, I went to using a walker, and also have a wheelchair, though I didn't use it because I couldn't, get down into it by myself. So anyway, it's gone from crutches to walker to wheelchair and, et cetera. And ultimately, I ended up bedbound, which you know because you're my close friend. Mm-hmm. So I am now bedbound, and of course that's a unique situation, challenging, of course.
Mm-hmm. I know that with my CRPS and that also, you were talking about how the bending over and things become a real challenge. And I've noticed that, my injury was first in my foot, and it started few years ago, about 4 years ago, and it works itself through my body. But my back and stuff, and I have a tough time to even, when I want to try to do it myself, to bend over into the refrigerator to reach things. And it's a real challenge to be trying to use the rest of the body when the injury first started in the foot. I've just noticed how fast it can move through your body.
Yeah, and I know I'm seeing that more nowadays. Like that for me. When I was worsening, I mean, it took. I don't know how to explain it, but it didn't. Nowadays, I see new people that are new with RSD becoming full body in less than a year, and that isn't what happened to me. Mm-hmm. I don't know why, but for me, it took. I hurt my back and hip, and lived like that for years, mm-hmm. And then, after several years, then it affected my feet, and mm-hmm. I lived like that for several years, and then it affected my hands, and I lived like that for several years, mm-hmm. And it affected my shoulders, and now it's been several years. So, I was very fortunate that my adjustments came, I only had to do a little at a time. Mm-hmm. I didn't have to go full body zoom, from 0 to 60 like people are doing now.
Right.
And another thing, I should have said this sooner and I forgot about it. The form of RSD that I have is mirror image. So whatever happens to one side of me automatically happens to the other side.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's really a trip.
Yeah, it is. That's what's happened with my legs. My CRPS and that, I believe, happened fast through full body, and that was because one of the factors is that I already had fibromyalgia, and I've had all the points for fibromyalgia. And then on top of it, I had scoliosis. I was born with scoliosis. So I think that those two contributing factors helped, along with a few weeks after I injured my left foot and it was CRPS at that time, I took another fall and landed on my right arm. So but I can't say mirror image for me, because actually it sort of crisscrossed for me, because it started in the left leg and then went to the right arm.
That would be called independent.
Okay. See, that's good to know. That's good to know.
Yeah, there's three patterns of spread. One would be contiguous, which is, on the same side. Mm-hmm. And then the other pattern would be mirror image, which is, like both feet, both shoulders, both hands, whatever. And then the third pattern would be
because on mine, the mirror image part did not happen until after I injured the left leg, then I injured the right arm and hand. But then after that point, the other arm started to image the right arm, the right leg started to image the left leg. So yeah. But I didn't realize that there was 3 forms. Yeah.
They call them patterns. I call them forms.
Okay.
I could never think of the word patterns.
Okay, 3 patterns. Okay.
I think that's located in, is it MetaFocus?
It might be MedFocus. Yeah, the MedFocus.
Don't you have that book?
Yeah, I do.
Check it out in there.
Yeah, because I first got that book when I first started CRPS and that, and it has a lot of information in it where you can do the research. The research is already done for you. You just have to go in there and read it.
Another place where it talks about the patterns, is in Linda Lang's book, Living with RSDS.
Oh, okay. I haven't read that.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll have to check that out. So, your treatments and that, did you have a lot of treatments back then, or how did that work for you?
It's funny to hear you say back then.
Well, 30 years is a long time. I only had,
I would say too, but
4
it's
years.
funny to hear someone else say it. Yes, that's an excellent point, because back then they didn't have the treatments that they have now. 35 years ago. So, however, I know that nowadays, all of us complain a lot about doctors not knowing enough.
Mm-hmm.
But think how much worse it was 30 years ago. So I would go from doctor to doctor to doctor to doctor, and they would all say, "I'm sorry, I can't help you because I don't know what's wrong with you." So the result of that is that I went undiagnosed for 18 years.
Wow.
And in that 18 years, not knowing what was wrong, just knowing I needed help, I would try everything I could think of. I tried PT, but they only made me worse because I'm super fragile.
Okay.
I'm extremely fragile. And so the PT only made me worse. And then, you've got the meds, but I'm super sensitive to meds, even supplements, herbs and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, I tried the PT, I tried the meds, which of course I still take meds, but they're minimal. And I tried chiropractic. I did chiropractic for years, and that helped me a good bit. It kept me stable, I guess. And I also tried acupuncture. That didn't help me. I know I've tried more, but I can't think of what they are.
Mm-hmm.
Or were.
I'm so sorry you had to go through that, because I'm thinking about today and that where, I myself hear a lot, I'm sorry, I can't help you, you have CRPS, or I don't know about that illness, or I've never heard of it, and they say that today, and I can't imagine going 18 years without being diagnosed. I mean, I was diagnosed within the minute. I was very fortunate. I had a doctor, but then he said, he told me and walked out of the room, and that was all there was to it, and said, he blatantly told me, I can't help you. You'll have to go see someone else. So I was fortunate to have a doctor know exactly what it is. But the psychological effects even, I'm thinking on for that, must have been just horrible. I mean, the psychological effects of CRPS already is tough enough, let alone not having the diagnosis. And I'm sure that you got a lot of people not believing that you were sick. Yes.
I got a lot of flack, and you know what? I learned something through that process. I learned that if it doesn't have a name, it's not believable. You know, because I didn't, without the diagnosis, I didn't have a name, I didn't have a label. I was not considered valid. People didn't believe that I really had something wrong with me because, after all, the doctors can't find it. So people didn't believe me. And, you know, that really made my life pretty tough for a good while. You know, it depends who it is. I mean, it's bad enough that anybody would convey that to you, but depending who it is, it can be pretty hard to deal with, you know?
Well, yeah, I do know. I mean, CRPS, RSD, or I should say RSD came first, and then CRPS. Is really tough on one's life. And it touches every aspect, and there's no stone unturned. And so many people don't have the support system that they need for this illness, and that's why we have such a high suicide rate. You know, the pain, the support, the understanding, compassion, knowledge. I mean, we need it all, plus more. You know, I'm so sorry you had to go through that.
Yeah, me too. But I'm glad it's over. You know, I wrote this in one of my books that if people for me personally, I don't know how other people feel. For me personally, I don't need people to understand what I'm going through. I only need them to believe me.
Wow.
That's all I need. I just need them to believe that I'm not lying, I'm not faking, I'm not exaggerating.
Wow. It's a powerful statement, too. It's beautiful.
That's the best thing that my family does for me. And it really is. It's like my family believes me. They don't ever act like I'm lying, faking, exaggerating, dramatizing, whatever. So, you know, I thank God for that.
Yeah, that is a true blessing. So that's a beautiful blessing. So many out here are suffering because they can't get that compassion and understanding or have any support whatsoever. And my heart goes out to them.
I know, mine does too.
Yeah, I have, I live alone also. And but I have a very good friend. He lives just right next door, and we've been friends for 20 years. And most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, if I need help, he's here. When he gets off work and that, he'll come in and check it up on me, or if I need something to eat or so forth. He does most of all of my shopping and washes my clothes and stuff. So I really depend on him a lot. I don't know what I'd do without him, and it's difficult at times for him to even understand. But one of the things that I've always said, and he also says too, that as a caregiver, he says that if he didn't see it, he wouldn't believe it. And I say, if I didn't have it, I wouldn't believe it.
Yeah, I say that all the time. If I wasn't living
exactly. I would have to question him because the symptoms of the illness is sometimes so unbelievable. So many things happen to you. Sometimes you're burning, sometimes you have a saw feeling, somebody sawing on your bones and they're crushing, and you have the electrical spikes, and you run fevers, and the fevers don't register up on on your thermometer, and some of your other organs get affected. And you have problems with those, and your blood pressure, and just so many things. And
I say this all the time. Who knew?
Exactly.
Who knew that a body could tolerate such pain? And who knew that a body could fail you the way it does? The limitations that we have.
Yes.
I mean, who knew? I never knew. I never knew any of this was possible.
Yeah, I didn't believe that there was this kind of pain out there. Yeah, who knew is exactly it. Who would have thunk? If you had somebody new with CRPS, what type of advice would you give them? What would you give another CRPSer? Yeah, one thing. If you had to say something to them to help, whatever, educate them, whatever it is.
I love this question.
Okay.
Because this comes up all the time. And of course, we're talking about after all the compassion and the understanding and the sympathy for what they're going through. The one thing I tell everyone is, things can change. They really can.
Yeah, in the beginning you don't believe that they can change. I know when I first got my CRPS, I thought this was it. There was nothing more.
Yeah, but they really can change. You can find a treatment that helps to relieve your pain. You can find a new medicine or a supplement, or even if you don't find any of that, your pain could at some point lessen. You could become stronger, and because you get used to dealing with it, so you become stronger and better at dealing with it. So, there are so many variables, so many things that can change. I know that we go through hell with it, but it doesn't, it won't always, or it doesn't necessarily mean that we will always be as bad as we are today.
Yes. One of the things I've learned from it, from this aspect, is that it has a lot to do with my mental stability. It has to do with my mind change, and it's difficult. I'm not saying it's easy. It's one of the most hardest things there is to do. Is to be positive when you're going through so much pain, so much hell around you. Your life is crashing, and you feel that nobody's there to understand. And it's very hard to stay positive.
It is, and yet it's the most critical thing. It's the most important thing we need to do. And another thing is, I had read numerous times that at some point, that sometimes people's pain sometimes some symptoms of RSD will dissipate after however long. And
my symptoms, they've it's like I can't say that they dissipated, but they've changed. Some of the symptoms that I had in the beginning aren't as strong as they are now, but they do come periodically. Some things stay constant. Example, like you're talking about the burning and that, the burning was very, very intense in the beginning for me. And I agree, for me, I don't know really the burning or the bone crushing.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that because that's certain, they're like comparable in pain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're the worst, both of those.
Yeah, and I now is periodically have the cramps, the electrical shocks, or the pins and the needles, and they all can get pretty intense when they want to, and so my pain is actually changed. It's not. I think that it's changed because of, I'm able to. I have a really good pain management doctor now, and since I do ketamine, I'm able to function somewhat. Because between the blocks, the ketamine, radio frequency, whatever I need at that moment when my body's crashing, it just helps me. But if I didn't have those treatments, that doctor that I have that didn't believe or understand a little bit about CRPS, which I'm so fortunate, thank you God, I would be totally bedridden, because I wouldn't be able to do anything for myself whatsoever. And even being bedridden, you still, when you're laying in bed, just have so much pain because just laying in that spot or turning in that, your hips and everything, they just ache so bad. And I have a problem. I haven't learned how to handle that portion yet when those days of being bedridden are for me. Because it winds up to be a lot of times 2-3 days at a time, and then I have to be totally dependent on someone else, and they're not here all the time, and I don't get sometimes what I need. Sometimes he can be very compassionate, and other times it's like, don't you understand what I'm going through? I can't get up. But the psychological part of it, of not being able to get up and help myself, is very, very difficult, and do things. And maybe, do you have something that you could tell somebody to help them through that portion? How do you get through that?
Through what?
Through the psychological effect. I mean, of not being able to, you have to rely on someone else all the time.
I think that, well, first of all, I depend on, I lean on my faith in God. My faith that He will either heal me or sustain me. Mm-hmm. And He has sustained me. And
me of going through the depression. When I'm depressed in that, it seems like each time I get depressed a little bit. My depression is a little bit worse than it was the time before, and I have to struggle and really pull to reach for something positive, rather it be music or a post or talking to a friend or something, because I have a habit of closing myself off to the world because I feel that the world don't understand, and I feel like I need to be alone. But I don't realize that me being alone is actually hurting me more, because it's such a pattern that I've done this through the last few years, that I've realized that it has caused me to not be as open with people, not to involve myself with groups or go out and be with other people. But the problem is, when I go out and to be with other people, the wind hurts me or something hurts me, so I wind up isolating myself again, or noise or sound or light or something to that nature, and people don't understand.
Yeah.
And so it causes me to isolate myself.
Yeah, and that can happen easily. And another thing that, along with faith and, trying to be positive, I really believe in the power of distraction. I call it distraction therapy.
Okay.
I just get involved I do other things that take my mind off of the pain or the problems. I try to keep busy so that I'm not thinking and dwelling on them.
That's pretty good. I know that probably took a lot of practice to do, didn't it?
Pardon me?
That took a lot of practice to do.
And that's the very reason why. See, I didn't have any hobbies before. I didn't used to have hobbies, but then when I became homebound, I could feel myself getting depressed, and I knew that I needed to distract myself. I knew I needed to take my mind off of my pain and off my problems.
Uh-huh.
So I started scrapbooking. And little did I know when I started that it was not only therapeutic, mentally therapeutic, it was also physically therapeutic, because my hands were affected. And by doing the handiwork of the scrapbooking, it really, truly helped my hands to where it strengthened them. And by the strengthening, it restored a good amount of use. Not to say that they're healed, but they're so much better.
Mm-hmm. So I guess that helped you also then to reinvent yourself then, didn't it? Because I know that a lot of CRPSers struggle from their old life, and then they have to figure out, what am I going to do with my life now? And so distracting yourself from your pain also can tie into that as reinventing yourself. Is that correct?
Absolutely, because, not that I was consciously thinking of it, I don't remember, but I don't think I was consciously thinking at the time, well, what can I do now since I can't do the things I used to do?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I was conscious of that thought, but that's what evolved. I started distracting myself with a new hobby to
So what are some of the hobbies and that you do, and what have you done, and what are you working on?
Well, like I said, the first thing was scrapbooking, and the second thing was card making. Even though I had been a card maker for years, my card making used to be on the computer. I would make cards on the computer and print them out. But now I started a new thing with the scrapbooking. I was so into the scrapbooking that I started making cards with embellishments and all that, which, so that handiwork also helped my fingers and hands to be more nimble. I started writing and advocating for awareness through books and blogs and what else? I'm having memory lapse here.
That's okay.
The new, well, one of the books that I did, which I hope people know about, is the one with, the RSD interviews.
Okay.
I interviewed 50 RSDers, and so they all tell their story. And the reason that I love that book and try to promote that the most is that I think 50 stories is far more powerful and effective than, one story that I might have written about myself, I think it really brings awareness to the public to know because everyone's story is different, and
Yes.
it brings awareness of the how vast the problems are and how limiting it can be, along with how painful. So, and you're in that book. You're one of the ones who tells your story.
I was just going to say, I'm sitting here laughing because,
Because I tormented you?
Well, I remember when I first started out with CRPS and that, I really was in a bad place. And I was trying, my problem with CRPS, the biggest problem with me is reinventing myself, because I feel that my career, I was going in law enforcement and that, and I was working as a community living instructor and a manager, and I felt that my career was stolen from me. I worked so hard to go into law enforcement and that. I was doing mediating at the courts and things, and just I was just really involved into karate and that, and so I felt like my life was stolen from me, and trying to evolve myself was so difficult. And then I met you, and that was the beginning of our relationship, and you were persistent with me on doing those questions. And I think the biggest thing of answering those questions and that for me was because I was so angry, and I didn't know how to answer them, and I didn't understand CRPS, and it was really tough for me to even answer the questions because I didn't understand what was going on with my body. And I was in so much pain. All I wanted to do was shut everything and everyone out. And you didn't let me. You didn't let me quit.
You know why? Because I knew it would be therapeutic for you.
It was.
The questions were thought-provoking, and I knew it would be therapeutic. And that's why it was important to me that you did it.
You're a very good friend. You're a very good friend. You didn't give up on me no matter what, and I appreciate that. Thank you so much. They really did help me, those questions, answering those questions. Helped me to start to evolve. It didn't happen overnight or anything like that, but it was the beginning. It was a step. And sometimes with CRPS and that, we have to realize that we have to take moment by moment, second by second. and that's just the way our life is. I want to thank you, and I know that you have other projects. You did Growing Faith in the Blink of an Eye. There was some others. You write poems, Christian poems for other people, and to help encourage them. And I know you have some other projects out there.
You know I do, and as I listen to you, I'm going through a thought process here. You know, In the Blink of an Eye was the first book that I did, and you know, my books are short, so I don't want anyone to think that they're going to get this big, thick book, and, you know, I have all the answers and I know everything, because that isn't the case. But In the Blink of an Eye was the first book, and therefore the shortest book, and it was very positive, and I'd like to think that I am by nature positive, but, you know, like I
minutes left. So I want to ask you also about, there's a couple questions here, but I want to ask you about journaling. You said that you journal. How important is it to journal, do you think?
Well, for me, it's very important because it gets it out of me. You know, it's like venting. You know, if I write it down, I've released it from inside of me, so it's not going to fester.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? Before I forget, there was one more thing I wanted to say about the books and the projects. The last book I published is called Poetic Devotions for Those in Pain. And to me, that's a special book because if you're a believer and you're going through these horrendous problems or this horrendous situation with RSD, CRPS, or any other disease, the devotions they tell it like it is. I mean, they are so frank. And yet, they rein us back in to know that God is able. You know, He's able to heal us. He's able to sustain us. Mm-hmm. He's able to comfort us. You know, whatever. We just need to be mindful that He's there and He cares and He loves and He longs to be gracious to us. And
right.
So, you know, I know that, you know, I'm a big person for devotionals. I mean, if you look to my closet, my bookshelf, most of the books in there would be devotionals. Mm-hmm. And they encourage me because no matter how down, no matter how hard life, I can read those and I can know
so
that
where can we find these?
It's not all bad, you know?
Where can we find the books? Your books?
Huh?
Where can we find your books at?
Some of the books are at Amazon, but not most of them. All of the books are at Barnes & Noble. Mm-hmm.
And you have a web?
They're all at Barnes & Noble. Some are at Amazon, some are at Smashwords. You know, they're kind of scattered around.
And you have a website, don't you?
I do.
And where's that? Is that on Facebook?
I don't know. Oh my gosh, I wasn't prepared for that question. I could post a website.
Okay.
But I couldn't tell it to you right now.
Okay. I have one quick question. We have 4 minutes left. One of the questions, the last question that I would like to ask you, Jane, is what is the best and the worst that has come from CRPS for you?
Oh my goodness. You know what? I learned a long time ago that there's more internal good than there is exterior bad. For me, a growing faith. That's why I wrote that book, because my faith has grown. I mean, I used to think that I had a lot of faith. I used to think I trusted God fully. And I found out that wasn't really so. Yes, I had a lot of faith. Yes, I had a lot of trust. But, you know, when you find out, you know, that saying, you don't know God is all you need until He's all you have. And that is exactly what happened to me. I mean, when He was all I had, my faith grew because I had to trust Him completely. There was no choice. And in trusting, you know, and then the more that you have to trust Him for, then the more practice you are at trusting Him. Mm-hmm. And, you know, in the end, I now know
Okay. Yeah, I like Psalms 54:4. Behold, God is my helper. The Lord is the upholder of my life. And Ephesians 6:10. Finally, be strong in the Lord and in His mighty power.
Yeah, and I like Psalms 91 too. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust.
That's so beautiful, and I love that. I love the bookmarker that you made for me and sent me with Psalms 91 on it. I keep it always in my book. I want to thank you, Jane, for coming and telling us your story, and that great courage through everything that you go through. And you're such a big help to the community in that, and teaching others and educating them about CRPS and helping them with their faith and encouraging them not to give up. I really appreciate that. I think that everybody with CRPS needs to reach out and help their neighbor. We can't give up teaching and educating and help spreading the word to help educators and physicians, and I can't think of the word I'm looking for right this moment, but to help others learn about RSD CRPS. We help ourselves by helping others.
That's true, we do. And this, I love all the groups, that people know they're not alone, and that they can come together and they can be encouraged and they can encourage others, and
Yeah.
I just love that. I love the unity is what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's really important. Okay,
And I
Jane.
thank you for all, you and I are really good friends, and I thank you for what we've shared together and what you mean to me.
Back at you. I love you. My life is not complete without you. All right, well, thank you, Jane, for this evening, and you have a good evening, and God bless.
You too, Maria.
Thank you. Bye-bye.